You open your eyes. The world is a blur of searing light and suffocating dust. There is no gentle transition, no soft awakening. One moment, you are nothing, floating in a warm, silent darkness. The next, you are a sprawling, 200-pound heap of confusion, your brand new lungs fighting for a first, desperate gasp of hot, dry air. Your grand entrance into the world, you see, was a 9-foot drop from the only home you've ever known, a messy, unceremonious eviction onto the baked, unforgiving floor of the African savannah. Your first sensation is not a mother's gentle nuzzle, but the jarring shock of blunt force trauma. Congratulations, you've just had your first and most important lesson in gravity. It only gets worse from here. Consciousness returns to nature's living monument to overengineering. A magnificent, yet deeply flawed, biological statement. Official designation, Loxodonta africana. But you are known to the world simply as the African elephant. A name that sounds regal, doesn't it? A title of weight and significance. But all it really means is that you are a giant, gray target, born onto a continent that has perfected the art of turning majesty into tragedy. Your story is not a triumphant march. It is a slow, ponderous, and ultimately doomed shuffle toward an inevitable, and often deeply ironic, conclusion. And I will be your guide through every agonizing step. So, let's take stock of your new situation. You are essentially a wobbly, half-blind, and utterly useless sack of flesh. The intricate machinery of your brain is still booting up, struggling to process the flood of terrifying new data. The world smells of dust, dry grass, and the overwhelming, musky scent of the colossal creature who is now nudging you with a foot the size of a dinner plate. This is your mother. She is your only line of defense in a world that views you as a novelty item on the food chain, a sort of oversized, undercooked appetizer. Your birthplace is a masterpiece of terrible design, a wide-open plain offering absolutely nowhere to hide. It is a vast, sun-scorched buffet, and as the newest, tenderest, most clueless item on the menu, you are generating considerable interest. The immediate conflict isn't singular. It's everywhere. Over in the tall grass, a lioness who has been patiently tracking your mother's 22-month pregnancy with the diligence of a seasoned tax auditor licks her chops. She has circled this date on her calendar. A pack of hyenas, nature's giggling assassins, are already debating the best angle of attack. To them, you are not a miracle of life. You are a windfall. A mobile feast that just needs to be separated from its overly protective, multi-ton security detail. Even your own kind are not to be trusted. You are born into a complex social hierarchy that you cannot possibly comprehend. A labyrinth of cranky aunts, moody cousins, and grumpy old bulls who view you as little more than a fleshy speed bump on their way to a waterhole. One wrong move, one failure to grovel with appropriate deference, and you could be met with a disciplinary shove from a relative that sends you sprawling into the dust. Your own family is a minefield of social obligations and potential grievances. Welcome to the herd. Try not to get trampled. Your mother, bless her exhausted 4-ton heart, is your only real shield. But she's just endured a gestation period that would drive a lesser creature to madness and has capped it off by unceremoniously dropping you onto the ground. She is running on fumes. Her protection is less a calculated strategy of maternal love and more a frantic, panic-driven form of damage control. Think less maternal instinct and more adrenal-fueled desperation. She will defend you, yes, but her defense is a chaotic whirlwind of trumpeting rage and blind charges that are just as likely to accidentally flatten you as they are to deter a predator. Your survival in these first few hours depends entirely on her ability to stay awake and her aim being true. It's a coin toss, really. So you survive the first day. A minor miracle, all things considered. Now begins the long, arduous, and frankly humiliating process of your education. Your childhood, if you can call it that, will be a decade-long struggle against a rotating cast of adversaries, each more determined than the last to end your story prematurely. Your primary bullies are, of course, the classics, lions and hyenas. They are the neighborhood thugs of the savannah, and you, my friend, are the new kid on the block with an expensive lunch, To them, you are a walking veal cutlet, a prime piece of future steak that just needs a little patient stalking. They are relentless, they are clever, and frankly, they are much, much better at this game than you are. They will test your mother's vigilance day and night, waiting for that one moment of inattention, that one exhausted stumble, that will give them the opening they need. Your youth is a constant, low-grade state of terror, punctuated by moments of sheer, heart-stopping panic. But the predators you can see are only half the problem. A far more insidious foe, and one you can't run from, is the sun itself. Drought is a quiet, methodical killer. The idyllic waterhole your herd relies upon, the center of your universe, can shrink and vanish in a matter of weeks, evaporating into a putrid, cracked mud puddle. When this happens, your life becomes a forced march. Your matriarch, the grizzled keeper of your family's secrets, will lead you on a desperate, shuffling odyssey across a barren landscape, a sort of family road trip where the only destination is anywhere that isn't this hellscape, and the only soundtrack is the grumbling of empty stomachs. These marches are brutal tests of endurance. The weak, the old, and the very young, that's you, are the first to falter. You will learn the true meaning of thirst, a dry, rasping agony that scrapes at your throat and fills your head with a dull, throbbing haze. And let's not forget the other elephants. While the females of your herd form a relatively stable, if occasionally testy, support network, the young bulls are a different story. Brimming with a volatile cocktail of hormones and terrible ideas, they are always looking to practice their dominance on someone smaller and more vulnerable. You are that someone. They will shove you, mock charge you, and generally make your life miserable, all as a clumsy dress rehearsal for the real, bloody battles they will one day fight. You are their training dummy. So what is your grand survival strategy in the face of all this? It is, to be blunt, pathetic. Your primary tactic is to be very, very large, and when that isn't enough, to stand very, very close to something that is even larger. For the better part of a decade, your entire existence will be spent hiding behind your mother's colossal legs, peering out at a world that wants to kill and eat you. Your camouflage is a biological joke. You are a giant, gray, moving boulder in a landscape of muted tans and subtle greens. Your attempt to blend in is like trying to be inconspicuous while wearing a flashing neon sign that reads, "Eat me, I'm full of nutrients." Your main active defense is to emit a series of high-pitched, panicked squeals and run, not away from danger, but directly towards the nearest adult female. It is the animal kingdom's equivalent of a small child losing their mother in a crowded supermarket and screaming uncontrollably until a store manager is forced to intervene. It is an undignified, embarrassing display, but it is, much to everyone's surprise, remarkably effective. Now, you must learn the ropes of being you. And the most important tool in your arsenal, the one that defines you, is also the one you have absolutely no idea how to operate. Your trunk. It is a bizarre, fleshy, multi-tool, a prehensile fusion of a nose and an upper lip, containing some 40,000 individual muscles. It is a biological marvel capable of uprooting a tree or picking up a single blade of grass. And for you, it is a constant source of frustration and embarrassment. You have no manual for this thing. Your early attempts to master it are comically inept, like watching a toddler try to operate a delicate piece of surgical equipment. You will try to drink with it and end up violently squirting water up your own nostrils, an experience akin to self-waterboarding. You will try to grab a tasty-looking branch and instead slap your own face with considerable force. You will swing it around with no coordination, accidentally hitting your siblings and earning a sharp rebuke from your mother. It is less a limb and more an unruly, boneless appendage with a mind of its own. Mastering it will take years of clumsy, frustrating trial and error. While you're fumbling with your own face, you also have to download your herd's entire operational database. Your brain, a magnificent 3-kilogram organ, must become a living library. You must memorize the intricate, invisible map of your territory, a sprawling mental GPS passed down through generations of matriarchs. Where are the best acacia trees? Which waterholes are the first to dry up? Where did that pride of lions ambush your great-uncle 3 seasons ago? Forgetting a crucial detail isn't just a minor slip-up. It's a potentially fatal error for you and everyone you're related to. Your survival depends on this inherited, unwritten knowledge. You will also learn the complex language of your kind, a rich vocabulary of rumbles, grunts, trumpets, and subtle body language that communicates everything from danger to "this is a particularly delicious marula fruit." You must become fluent, or you will be left out of conversations that could save your life. Then there are the mock fights with other calves. These clumsy headbutting, trunk-wrestling ballets look adorable to an outside observer. A delightful bit of youthful play. But you know better. This isn't play. This is primary school for a future of brutal, life or death combat. Every shove, every clumsy parry, is practice for the day when you will face off against another bull, a 6-ton mountain of rage and hormones, in a bloody contest over mating rights. This is where you learn how to gauge an opponent's strength, how to use your weight, and how to protect your vulnerable sides. It's all fun and games until someone loses an eye, or worse, their place in the gene pool. Then, one day, you look around and realize something has shifted. You have, against all odds, made it. You have survived the gauntlet of your youth. You are now an adult, a walking fortress of muscle, bone, and ivory. The predators that once stalked your every move now pointedly change their travel plans to avoid crossing your path. They see you not as a meal, but as a problem they don't want. You have become an apex herbivore, the undisputed heavyweight champion of eating plants. Your life has improved in the sense that you are no longer an easy meal. You spend your days in a state of ponderous, meditative consumption, mindlessly converting hundreds of pounds of vegetation into more of yourself. Your sheer, colossal size is a deterrent to almost everything. You have reached the top. You have found stability. You think you've finally found peace. And you are, of course, catastrophically wrong. Because just when your life seems to have settled into a comfortable, predictable rhythm, a new, far more idiotic problem emerges, not from the outside world, but from deep within your own biology. If you are a male, this problem is called must. It is a periodic descent into hormonal insanity, a biological time bomb that detonates in your system and turns you from a gentle, contemplative giant into a hyper-aggressive, foul-smelling, testosterone-crazed public menace. This isn't just a bad mood. It is a physiological imperative to become a violent, unpredictable jerk. A thick, tar-like fluid, rich in hormones, begins to seep from the temporal glands on the sides of your head. Your testosterone levels can spike to 60 times their normal level. You are, in essence, marinating in your own rage. During this period, which can last for weeks or even months, you will become consumed by a single, overriding purpose: to fight other males and mate with females. You will challenge any bull you encounter, engaging in titanic, earth-shaking battles that can result in horrific injuries. Tusks are broken, flesh is gouged, and sometimes one of you will not walk away. All this for the attention of females who, for the most part, seem deeply unimpressed by this toxic, smelly, and frankly juvenile display of masculinity. You are a prisoner of your own endocrinology, driven by an ancient, self-destructive programming you cannot override. If you are a female, your adult burden is quieter, but in many ways far heavier. You will eventually graduate to the role of matriarch. The crushing weight of responsibility now settles onto your aging shoulders. You are no longer just responsible for yourself. You are responsible for the lives of your sisters, your daughters, your nieces, and all their calves. You become the living library, the walking hard drive containing your herd's collective survival data. That mental map of waterholes and predators you spent your youth learning. It is now your sole duty to maintain and update it. Every decision, where to find food, when to begin the long march to the next water source, how to navigate the territory of a rival herd, whether to stand and fight or to flee, is yours to make. And a single bad call can lead to the slow, agonizing death of your entire family. The daily, personal terror of being eaten is replaced by the constant, grinding anxiety of leadership. There is no retirement plan. You hold this position until you die or until a younger, sharper female proves you are no longer fit for command. And so your prime years are spent in this state of either hormonally fueled violence or crushing responsibility. The simple, mindless peace of your adolescence is a distant memory. This is your peak. This is the best it gets. Enjoy it, because the decline is long, and it is merciless. The inevitable decay begins subtly. Your immense strength, your defining feature, begins to wane. Aches settle deep into your bones, a permanent part of your existence. Your magnificent tusks, once your greatest weapons and most versatile tools, are now worn down, chipped, or perhaps even broken from a lifetime of digging for roots, stripping bark, and fighting off rivals. They are a record of your life struggles, written in scarred and fractured ivory. But the most brutal betrayal of all comes from within your own mouth. It is a unique and exquisitely cruel piece of elephant biology. You are allotted exactly 6 sets of molars in your lifetime. They erupt in sequence from the back of your jaw and slowly move forward, like a biological conveyor belt, grinding away as they go. When a tooth is worn down to a useless nub, it falls out, and the next one in line shuffles forward to take its place. It's an efficient system for a while, but the 6th set is the last. There are no more replacements. When this final set of teeth wears down, your time is running out. The process is slow, agonizing, and inescapable. The fibrous, tough vegetation that has sustained you for decades becomes impossible to chew. You are surrounded by an endless, all-you-can-eat buffet that you can no longer consume. Every mouthful is a struggle, a painful, fruitless grinding that yields less and less sustenance. You begin to lose weight, the great fortress of your body slowly shrinking, the skin hanging loosely from your massive frame. You are beginning the long, undignified process of starving to death in a land of plenty. It is nature's final, most cynical joke, reserved especially for you. As your physical body weakens, so does your social standing. If you are a male, you are now easily driven away from the herd and its mating opportunities by younger, stronger bulls in the throes of their own violent lust. You become a solitary, lonely figure, haunting the fringes of the society you once dominated. A ghost at the feast. If you are a matriarch, your authority begins to crumble. A younger female, her memory still sharp and her instincts keen, may begin to challenge your decisions. The herd, sensing your faltering leadership, may begin to follow her instead. You are deposed not with a fight, but with the quiet, crushing dismissal of being ignored. You are left to trail behind the family you once led, a respected but ultimately irrelevant relic. Your final confrontation is not a grand cinematic battle. There is no glorious last stand. Your end is a slow, quiet, undignified surrender. It might be a pack of hyenas, a foe you would have contemptuously dismissed in your prime. Now they are emboldened by your weakness, by the scent of decay that clings to you. They will not risk a direct assault. Instead, they will shadow you for days, nipping at your heels, testing your resolve, waiting for you to become too exhausted to even swing your trunk in defense. They will literally run you to death. More likely, however, your final challenger is your own failing body. It is starvation. The gnawing emptiness in your belly becomes your constant, all-consuming companion. You can no longer keep up with the herd as they march relentlessly toward the next water source, a journey you yourself may have led dozens of times. Your massive legs, once capable of crossing continents, can no longer carry you. Eventually, you stop. You are left behind, a solitary, dying mountain of flesh and bone, watching your family disappear over the horizon. Your demise is quiet. You find a shady spot under an acacia tree, the same kind of tree that gave you sustenance for decades, and you lie down. And you simply stop. The great heart that pumped oceans of blood through your colossal body gives its final, weary beat. Your lungs exhale for the last time. Your mind, the repository of 60 years of memories, of maps, of family, of pain and pleasure, fades to black. Your body, once a symbol of indomitable living power, is now just a rapidly disappearing buffet for the ecosystem's cleanup crew. Vultures, jackals, insects. Everyone gets their share. Your contribution to the circle of life is, in the end, to become a massive pile of free food. And as your earthly remains are being efficiently and unceremoniously recycled, miles away, a new calf, a distant grandniece or nephew, is unceremoniously dropped 9 feet onto the savannah floor. It stumbles to its feet, blinking in the harsh sun, entirely unaware that it is standing at the starting line of the exact same pointless, tragicomic marathon. The cycle resets. The struggle begins anew. So, why does it suck to be you? Because your entire existence is a decades-long, multi-ton struggle against predation, starvation, and your own biology. A struggle whose grand finale is, more often than not, dying of a toothache. So, that's your life. A short, brutal, and ultimately meaningless cycle, repeated ad nauseam. You'd think that would be enough tragedy for one creature. But you were unlucky enough to exist at the same time as another, even more problematic primate. An ape so clever it could admire your strength in one breath and invent a dozen new ways to kill you with the next. And that's when your personal, biological tragedy became a historical catastrophe. When the first of these upright apes with anxiety issues stumbled across you in the ancient world, their primitive brains simply short-circuited. You were a living impossibility. A gray mountain that moved. A creature with a snake for a face and spears growing out of its mouth. You were so far outside their limited frame of reference that their only available categories were God, monster, or an immense amount of lunch. There was no middle ground. They looked upon your sheer size and mistook it for immortality. They saw your tusks, gleaming in the African sun, and assumed they were sacred relics, fragments of the moon brought to earth. They heard your ground-shaking rumbles and believed it was the voice of the earth itself. You were instantly, and without your consent, promoted. You became a forest god, a living earthquake, a divine messenger of inscrutable purpose. You became a walking Rorschach test for all their fears and all their aspirations. They would huddle in their caves, painting your likeness on the walls with charcoal and ochre, trying to capture a sliver of your immense power, trying to understand what you were. The sheer absurdity of it all is that your entire identity, your place in the cosmos, was being defined by these superstitious, clever monkeys who still thought lightning was an angry sky spirit throwing a tantrum. They didn't see you, the weary, plant-eating mammal. They saw an answer. An answer to questions you didn't even know existed. They saw a symbol. And that was the most dangerous thing you could possibly be. Your newfound divine status was, in practice, a death sentence with excellent marketing. Being immortalized on a cave wall was a tremendous honor, right up until the moment the artists who painted you decided that the best way to appease your divine power was to kill you and eat it. Your holiness was a prelude to your slaughter. They were grand, ritualistic undertakings, a testament to humanity's burgeoning, malevolent cleverness. They didn't have the strength to face you head-on, so they used their one true advantage, a capacity for devious, collaborative planning. They learned to use fire, their terrifying, stolen power, to create walls of flame and panic, driving your terrified herd towards cliffs or into massive, pre-dug pits cleverly concealed with branches. They learned to exploit your greatest strength, your family bonds. They would target a calf, knowing its distress calls would draw the adults, especially your mother, into a carefully prepared ambush. They turned your love into a weapon against you. Your divine attributes were immediately looted and repurposed. Your massive bones, once the framework of a god, made excellent frameworks for their crude huts. Your sacred tusks were not worshipped, but carved. They were chipped and scraped into figurines of their own gods, or into tools, or into personal adornments for the most successful of the hunters. The ironic gap between being worshipped and being exploited wasn't a gap at all. It was a seamless process. Worship was simply the first step of consumption. It was how they justified the hunt. They weren't killing a mere animal. They were partaking in a god, absorbing its power. A convenient piece of theological gymnastics that filled their bellies and soothed their consciences. As they slowly graduated from nomadic hunting parties to crude, permanent settlements, you became something new. You became an inconvenience. A colossal, gray problem. Your ancient migration routes, paths your ancestors had trod for thousands of years, suddenly intersected with their pathetic little patches of cultivated land. You would wander through their first fumbling attempts at agriculture, blissfully unaware that you were committing a grave sin, and be labeled a pest. A crop raider. A destructive force sent to ruin them. You, who had been here all along, were now the intruder. You were also the perfect scapegoat. If a drought withered their crops, it was because the elephant gods were displeased and must be appeased with a hunt. If a flood washed away their village, it was because the elephants had transgressed and must be punished. You became the all-purpose explanation for their own failures, for their inability to control a world they were only just beginning to systematically ruin. The injustice was breathtaking. You were branded the villain for simply continuing your existence, for walking the same paths and drinking from the same rivers you always had. They were the invaders, clearing your forests and scarring your land. But in their rapidly evolving narrative, you were the trespasser. And so, the first chapter of your tragic relationship with humanity comes to a close. What is the ultimate, cynical takeaway from this era? That being worshipped is merely a prelude to being sacrificed. That being a symbol is just another word for target. Your most awe-inspiring qualities, your strength, your size, your magnificent ivory, were not gifts. They were liabilities. Their reverence was never about you. It was about them. It was a form of market appraisal, a way of assessing your value before the inevitable, bloody transaction. This age of confused worship set the tone for everything that was to come. It established the fundamental, unbreakable pattern. Humanity would first marvel at you, then find a way to profit from your destruction. Now we enter a new era, an age of empires, organized religion, and global commerce. The magic is gone. The eye is curdled into cold, hard calculation. You are no longer a god to be appeased. You are a resource to be quantified, a tool to be wielded, a product to be sold. In this new world, your perception has been officially and ruthlessly downgraded from divine to utilitarian. The great Carthaginian general Hannibal, for instance, didn't drag your ancestors over the frozen Alps because he thought they were sacred. He did it because they were living, breathing tanks, terrifying, biological siege weapons that could smash through enemy lines and fill the hearts of Roman legionaries with primal dread. You became a tool of human ambition, a pawn in their endless, bloody squabbles over territory and power. Your strength was harnessed for their wars. Across the world, your role was formalized. You were captured, broken, and trained to become a beast of burden. You, who had once roamed free across entire continents, were now shackled and yoked, hauling timber for their temples and stone for their palaces. You became the living engine of their burgeoning civilizations. And in the burgeoning world of global commerce, you became something even more abstract, a commodity. Your tusks, in particular, became white gold. This beautiful, terrible part of you, this overgrown tooth, became one of the most prized luxury materials on the planet. It drove global trade networks, funded colonial expeditions, and adorned the homes of the wealthy and powerful. You were no longer a creature. You were an entry in an accounting ledger, a line item in the cargo manifest of a ship bound for Europe or Asia. Your worth calculated not by your intelligence or your spirit, but by the weight and quality of your ivory. This was the age where you were systematically and officially exploited. Your subjugation became an industry. They developed sophisticated methods of capture and training. Pits, corrals, and specially trained elephants, kunkkas, were used to round up entire wild herds. The process of breaking you was a brutal psychological assault, designed to shatter your will and replace your wild instincts with absolute obedience to a human master, your mahout. Your spirit was extinguished so your body could be used. You were an asset to be managed, a piece of biological machinery to be maintained for maximum efficiency. Your body was officially commodified. It was broken down into its constituent parts, each with a market value. Your tusks, of course, were the grand prize, carved into intricate statues, jewelry, piano keys, billiard balls, and ornate handles for cutlery. Your tough hide was used for shields and armor. Your meat fed armies. Your bones were ground up for use in traditional medicines. Nothing was wasted. This was the era that perfected the transition of a living, breathing being into raw material. You ceased to be an individual and became a collection of valuable resources. Your life had a price tag, and it was being determined in markets thousands of miles away by people who had never seen you alive, who knew you only as the origin point of their favorite luxury good. You were now, in the coldest legal and commercial sense of the word, property. And then came the collateral damage, the unintended but utterly devastating consequences of their so-called progress. Their technological advancement was your apocalypse. The most significant of these was the invention and proliferation of the firearm. This single innovation changed the entire dynamic of the hunt. It transformed what was once a dangerous contest, requiring skill, bravery, and a great deal of luck on the part of the hunter, into a one-sided slaughter. A man with a high-caliber rifle, a big-game hunter, could accomplish in a matter of seconds what a pride of lions couldn't hope to do in a week. He could kill you from a safe distance, 100 yards away, before you even knew you were in danger. The hunt was no longer a fight. It was an execution. Their relentless expansion across the globe was a rolling catastrophe for your entire species. As European powers colonized continents, they brought with them their insatiable greed, their advanced weaponry, and their unshakable belief that the natural world was theirs to tame and exploit. Your ancient migration routes, the lifelines of your herds, were severed by railroads, fences, and vast plantations for coffee, tea, and rubber. Your forests were felled for their timber and to clear land for their farms. You were pushed into smaller and smaller pockets of wilderness, competing with your own kind for dwindling resources. You were brought into new, unnatural conflicts, not just with humans, but with other herds, as the map of your world was violently redrawn by your conquerors. This wasn't a war you were losing. It was an extermination campaign, waged by the very species whose empires you had helped build, a campaign fueled by their desire for your body parts and justified by their belief in their own manifest destiny. What, then, is the deeply ironic summary of this age of systematic misery? It is that your greatest natural gifts, your incredible strength, and your beautiful tusks were the very things that sealed your doom. Your strength was used to construct the very civilizations that would then dedicate themselves to your eradication. You carried their soldiers, hauled their timber, and cleared their paths, and your only reward was to be hunted to the brink of oblivion with the new and improved tools you had helped them create. Your beauty was the primary reason for your slaughter. You were killed in staggering numbers for the crime of being magnificent. Your legacy, written in this era, is one of tragic, involuntary servitude, ending in a crescendo of industrial-scale violence. And so we arrive in the modern world. The industrial age, an age of science, mass media, and a strange new form of human consciousness. And you, once again, were to be redefined. The magic was long gone, the utility mostly obsolete. In this new era of cold, hard facts and empirical data, you were recategorized as a scientific specimen. You became Loxodonta africana, a data point to be measured, weighed, and studied. Your behavior was cataloged in scientific journals. Your genome was sequenced and stored in a database. Your population numbers were plotted on graphs that showed a terrifyingly steep decline. You were no longer a monster, a god, or a tool. You were a biological curiosity, a living relic from a bygone era, a fascinating subject for a doctoral thesis. Your essence was distilled into numbers and academic papers. Simultaneously, as your numbers plummeted towards zero, you underwent another bizarre transformation. You became a logo, a symbol. Your noble silhouette, your magnificent tusks, your wise, wrinkled eyes, these became powerful branding tools. You became the sad face on a conservation pamphlet, designed to tug at the heartstrings and open the wallets of guilty first worlders. You became a cute, cuddly cartoon character to sell children's movies, plush toys, and breakfast cereals. Your image was used to sell everything from trucks to banking services, a symbol of strength and reliability that bore no resemblance to your actual, precarious existence. And to the relentless, unstoppable march of industrial progress, you remained what you had become in the last era, a problem to be solved. a biological obstacle standing in the way of a new hydroelectric dam, a new open pit mine, a new superhighway. You were a variable to be managed, and often a problem to be cleared. After the internal combustion engine and the tractor made your physical labor worthless, you were given one final, pathetic, and deeply ironic job: to inspire guilt. Your new purpose in the human world was to serve as a living, breathing monument to their regret. Your continued existence became a measure of their capacity for redemption. You became a spectacle. You were rounded up from the tattered remnants of your wilderness home and placed into zoos and wildlife parks. Here, you became a curated exhibit, a living display where families could come to marvel at your majesty for a few minutes, munching on popcorn, before returning to their air-conditioned cars and driving home on roads paved over what was once your territory. You became the ghost at their feast, a walking, breathing reminder of a wild world they had systematically dismantled, a convenient and easily accessible token of the nature they had lost. Your usefulness was now purely emotional. You exist to generate sympathy. You exist to anchor fundraising campaigns and star in heart-wrenching documentaries, complete with a somber string quartet soundtrack. You exist to serve as a tangible, living apology from the descendants of your executioners. They look at you, safe behind a moat or a fence, and feel a flicker of something noble. They feel a sense of accomplishment, of having saved you. Your final job is to be the living embodiment of their conscience, a role you never auditioned for and for which you are paid nothing. You are now, for all intents and purposes, an object of charity, a ward of the state, a refugee in your own land, and the keepers of your comfortable new prison are the very same species that built it for you. What does this conservation actually feel like from your perspective? Is it a safe haven? Or is it a comfortable, open-air prison? You are safe, it is true. The immediate threat of the poacher's bullet or the snare trap is gone. You are monitored. You are given medical care. But you have been stripped of everything that it means to be an elephant. Your world, which should be the vast, unpredictable expanse of a continent, has shrunk to a few thousand acres of meticulously managed parkland. It is a garden, not a wilderness. A beautiful, spacious, well-maintained cage. Your life is now completely and utterly curated by humans. They track your every move with GPS collars that chafe against your neck. They watch you from a distance with drones that buzz like monstrous insects in the sky above. They manage your population with the cold, dispassionate calculus of spreadsheets, deciding which bulls get to breed and which herds need to be culled for the good of the park's ecosystem. They use contraception to manage your birth rates. They have taken over every aspect of your life, from birth to death. You are no longer a wild animal, responding to the ancient rhythms of nature. You are a managed asset in their global portfolio of biodiversity. You have traded freedom for a life sentence of supervised safety. Your daily life is punctuated by the rumble of diesel engines and the excited chatter of foreign languages. Safari trucks, filled with tourists clad in khaki and armed with long lens cameras, are your constant companions. They are the new predators, but they hunt for images, not for meat. You are their quarry. You are expected to perform, to be magnificent on cue, to stand majestically by the waterhole as the sun sets, providing the perfect photo opportunity. You are a living museum piece, a spectacle of survival staged for the entertainment and edification of the very species that necessitated the spectacle in the first place. You chew your food, you spray dust on your back, you interact with your family, all under the constant, unblinking gaze of hundreds of strangers. There is no privacy. There is no escape. You are always on display. And what is the ultimate, most profound and soul-crushing irony of your modern existence? After taking your land, your freedom, your family, your purpose, and your future. After driving you to the very precipice of extinction, humanity now spends millions upon millions of dollars to keep your species alive in these heavily guarded preserves. They do this not for you, but for themselves. They do it so they can feel better about what they have done. They do it so they can tell themselves a story of redemption, a story where they are not the villains, but the heroes who swooped in at the last minute to save the day. Your continued, carefully managed existence is the final exhibit in the museum of their greatness. It is for them. It is the final, and perhaps the most insulting, form of exploitation. Your survival has become their therapy. The final, cynical truth of your long, brutal, and tragic relationship with humanity is this: you are now more valuable to them as a symbol of their capacity for redemption than you ever were as a living creature. They don't want you, the wild, unpredictable, continent-roaming elephant. They want this version of you. The tame, contained, and photogenic version. The version that makes them feel good. The version that allows them to forget their sins. Your tragic legacy, the finale, is to serve as the living proof that your destroyers can also, in their own minds at least, be your saviors. You are the poster child for their atonement. A full-time, unpaid position you will hold until the day you die in your safe, comfortable, and utterly meaningless prison. Let's linger on this modern condition, this gilded cage they call a sanctuary. Think of the sheer, soul-crushing boredom of it all. Your mind, the magnificent organ that was designed to hold the maps of entire regions, to remember the faces of hundreds of other elephants, to process a complex social world and a constantly changing environment, is now catastrophically underutilized. It is like using a supercomputer to play tic-tac-toe. The challenges that once honed your intelligence and gave your life meaning are gone. There are no droughts to survive, no long migrations to plan, no predators to outwit. Your food appears at the same time every day, delivered by the same people. The boundaries of your world are a fence line, an unchanging and absolute limit to your existence. Your instincts, the ancient software passed down through 1,000,000 generations, are now useless, even problematic. The urge to roam for hundreds of miles is a source of frustration, a ghost limb that aches for a journey you can never take. The instinct to defend your family with ferocious, trumpeting rage is suppressed. The park rangers with their tranquilizer darts will handle any problems. You have been systematically defanged, not just of your ivory, but of your very essence. The wildness that defined you has been deemed an administrative inconvenience. You are expected to be a placid, gentle giant, a living statue. Any deviation from this script is met with concern, with management, with intervention. And consider the tourists. For you, they are a constant, incomprehensible presence. A river of pale, chattering apes that flows past you every single day. They point their black, glassy eyes at you, making sharp clicking noises. They ooh and ah at your size, at your calves, at the way you use your trunk. Their reactions are a strange mix of fear, wonder, and a sort of casual ownership. You are on their checklist, a box to be ticked between the scenic waterfall and the gift shop. They feel a connection to you, a profound, 10-minute-long connection, before they move on to the next exhibit. They know nothing of your weariness, of your boredom, of the phantom ache in your legs for a horizon you cannot reach. They see a magnificent beast, a triumph of conservation. They do not see a prisoner. They see what they paid to see. The hypocrisy is baked into every aspect of your new life. The very corporations that may have funded the dam that flooded your ancestral valley might now be corporate sponsors of your preserve, their logos emblazoned on the side of the safari trucks. They buy conservation credits to offset their carbon footprint, using your existence as a way to launder their environmental guilt. You have become a pawn in a global game of public relations. The descendants of the men who grew rich from the ivory trade now sit on the boards of the charities dedicated to your survival. They host lavish galas to raise awareness, celebrating your majesty while conveniently forgetting their own family's role in your downfall. This is your final, tragic legacy, to be endlessly studied, managed, photographed, and used as a symbol by the very species that shattered your world. They look at you and see a story about themselves. A story of their initial destructiveness, yes, but ultimately, a story of their wisdom, their compassion, and their ability to fix the problems they create. You are the living proof of their narrative arc. You are not the hero of your own story anymore. You are a supporting character in theirs, a silent, gray testament to their capacity for self-forgiveness. And you will play this role day after day in your safe, boring, beautiful prison, until your final set of teeth wears down and they decide it is more humane to put you down. Even your death will be a managed event, a final act of compassionate control. Let's truly dissect the absurdity of your previous life, the supposed wild existence. That brutal beginning, for instance. We've established it was a 9-foot drop onto hard earth. But let's appreciate the finer details of this welcome. Your mother, in the throes of her final contractions, is not in a mood for gentle ceremony. You are expelled with the force of a hydraulic press, landing in a heap of tangled limbs. For a few precious moments, you are a prime target, a helpless, 200-pound nugget of protein. Your mother has to quickly cut the umbilical cord with her foot, a clumsy piece of field surgery, and then nudge you, shove you, and bully you into standing on your own 4 wobbly pillars. This isn't gentle encouragement. It's a panicked command. Get up before something eats you. Your first hour on Earth is a frantic race against the clock, a race against the keen noses of every predator within a 5-mile radius. And the struggle of your youth wasn't just about lions and hyenas. It was about the mundane, everyday terrors. It was about insects. You are a massive, slow-moving buffet not just for the big cats, but for a billion biting, stinging, disease-carrying bugs. Ticks, flies, mosquitoes. They are a constant, maddening presence, crawling into your ears, your eyes, and laying their eggs in any open wound. You will spend an inordinate amount of your life covering yourself in mud and dust, not for fun, but as a desperate, low-tech form of pest control. It is a never-ending battle against an enemy that is too small to fight and too numerous to defeat. The juvenile struggle was also a struggle for food. Yes, your mother provided milk, but soon you had to learn to forage for yourself. And what do you eat? Bark, leaves, roots, grass, things that are universally acknowledged to be tough, fibrous, and of questionable nutritional value. You have to eat for 16 hours a day, a mind-numbing marathon of chewing and swallowing, just to take in the bare minimum of calories required to operate your colossal body. Your life is a relentless quest for fuel. You are a furnace that must be constantly stoked, and your fuel is the least efficient, most difficult to process stuff imaginable. The romance of living off the land is lost on you. For you, it's just endless, joyless work. Let's reconsider the peak of your adulthood. Being a massive, powerful bull and must isn't a state of glorious dominance. It's a state of profound sickness. You barely eat, you barely sleep. You are driven by a singular, agonizing compulsion. The constant dribble of fluid from your temporal glands is foul-smelling and attracts flies. You become a walking biohazard. Other, non-musk elephants give you a wide berth, not out of respect, but out of a desire to avoid the crazy, smelly guy who is looking for a fight. It's not a crown you wear. It's a disease you suffer from. And for the matriarch, the wisdom she possesses is a crushing burden. She remembers every drought, every famine, every calf lost to a predator. It's a catalog of past disasters that she must constantly reference to avoid future ones. It is a library of trauma. The decline, the wearing down of those final molars, is an exquisite torture. Imagine being a chef in a world-class kitchen, surrounded by the finest ingredients, but having no hands to cook with. That is your reality. Food is everywhere. Abundant, fragrant, and utterly inaccessible. You will try, of course. You'll strip softer bark. You'll search for tender water plants. But it's not enough. You feel your strength ebbing away, your massive muscles withering. The herd, your family, must move on. They cannot wait for you. Their survival depends on their mobility. They leave you, not out of cruelty, but out of a brutal, biological necessity. And your final days are spent in a state of profound, lonely hunger, a ghost haunting the edges of a feast. The final punchline isn't just that you die of a toothache. It's that you die of starvation while being surrounded by food. It's a level of irony that only nature, in its infinite, casual cruelty, could devise. Let's drill down into the historical hypocrisy, starting with that ancient worship. This wasn't reverence as a modern human might understand it. It wasn't about appreciating your intelligence or your complex social structures. It was primitive, transactional fear. They worshipped you in the same way they worshipped a volcano or a hurricane. You were a terrifying, unpredictable force of nature, and their worship was a desperate attempt to bargain with you. Please, great mountain that walks, do not trample our pathetic village. We will give you a special name and draw a picture of you. Just please, aim your trampling elsewhere. It was cosmic-scale brown-nosing, a survival strategy born of utter powerlessness. The transition from that fear-based worship to systematic exploitation was remarkably swift. Once they figured out how to kill you reliably, the God narrative became inconvenient. It was quickly replaced by a narrative of conquest. He was a hero, a dragon slayer who had conquered a monster. Your death became a source of status and prestige. Your tusks became his trophies, proof of his courage and power. They didn't just kill you for your resources. They killed you for the story it allowed them to tell about themselves. In the Age of Empires, your role as a war machine was even more demeaning than it sounds. You weren't a willing soldier. You were living, terrified artillery. Mahouts would often ply elephants with alcohol before a battle to make them more aggressive and less fearful. You were sent into the chaos of a battlefield, confused, probably intoxicated, and terrified by the noise of trumpets and the screams of men. You were a weapon, yes, but you were also a target. The enemy would aim for your eyes, for your legs, trying to bring you down and turn your panicked, multi-ton mass into a liability for your own side. Many of you died in agony, far from home, for a cause you could not comprehend, fighting for apes who saw you as nothing more than a disposable piece of military hardware. The ivory trade represents the absolute peak of human cognitive dissonance. People in Europe and America would play pianos with keys made from your teeth, blissfully unaware of the bloody carnage their demand had created thousands of miles away. They saw a beautiful, polished object. They did not see the butchered carcass you were left as, your face hacked away by poachers' axes. The trade was driven by a desire for beauty and status, and it was built on a foundation of unimaginable cruelty. Your species was pushed to the edge of annihilation so that someone could have a fancy set of billiard balls or a delicately carved chess set. Your magnificent, sentient life was weighed against a trivial luxury, and the luxury won time and time again. The entire global economy, for a time, was complicit in your destruction, a silent conspiracy of consumers, traders, and hunters, all profiting from your demise. And now, in this modern age, the hypocrisy has simply taken a different form. The conservation effort is often a form of ecotourism, another industry built on your back. People pay vast sums of money to fly across the world to see you, generating revenue that, in theory, pays for your protection. You've been turned into a sustainable resource, your value now calculated in tourist dollars instead of pounds of ivory. You are still property, but now you are income-generating property, a natural asset in a national park's portfolio. The language has changed, from exploitation to conservation, but the underlying dynamic remains the same. You are a resource to be managed for human benefit. The benefit is no longer a physical product, but an experience, a photograph, a feeling of having done something good for the planet. But it is still, and always will be, for them. Let's delve deeper into this modern purgatory, this comfortable prison they call a sanctuary. Consider the generation born within these fences. The calves who take their first steps not on the vast, dusty plains of your youth, but on manicured, irrigated grass. Their first scent is not the complex perfume of the wild savanna, but the faint, antiseptic smell of disinfectant from the visitor center. They have never known true danger. A predator, to them, is just a picture in a book or a distant, sleepy-looking animal in another enclosure down the path. You watch them. You, who remember the terror and the thrill of a real lion hunt, who remember the bone-deep weariness of a 100-mile trek for water. You see these young ones playing, their mock fights lacking the desperate edge of true practice. They are play-acting a life they will never lead. Their instincts are blunted, their ancient knowledge irrelevant. When you let out a low, rumbling warning, a sound that once would have sent a herd into high alert for miles around, they look at you with placid confusion. The sound has no context for them. It is a ghost language, a relic from a world that no longer exists. This is perhaps the most insidious part of your preservation. It's not just your freedom that has been taken, but your culture. The intricate web of knowledge, language, and tradition that your matriarchs passed down for millennia is dying. It is dying with you. You can try to teach the young ones the old ways, to show them how to strip bark from a tree they'll never need for food, or how to listen for the distant thunder that signals a storm they'll be sheltered from. But you are teaching them a history they cannot touch. It's like a human grandfather trying to teach his grandchildren how to hunt with a spear in the middle of a bustling metropolis. The skills are obsolete. The context is gone. You are the last of your kind, not in a biological sense, but in a cultural one. You are the last one who truly remembers. And this isolates you more profoundly than any fence. And let's not forget the well-meaning humans who are your wardens, your keepers. They are not cruel people. In fact, they love you. They approach you with a gentle reverence. They know your favorite foods. They worry when you seem unwell. But their love is the love of a collector for a priceless, fragile artifact. It is a love that seeks to protect, preserve, and control, not to understand. Their job is to ensure you live a long, healthy, and completely unnatural life. They are the smiling, friendly faces of your incarceration. They measure your food, they chart your weight, they administer your medicine. They are the architects of your gilded cage, and they genuinely believe they are doing a noble thing. They are protecting you from the world, but they are also protecting the world from you. Your wildness, your unpredictability, your sheer, magnificent power, these are things they cannot allow. Their kindness is a velvet glove on an iron fist of absolute control. They love the idea of you, the symbol of you. The reality of you, the 6-ton force of nature, is something they must constantly, gently, and lovingly suppress. Your life becomes a parody of freedom. You are given enrichment activities. A puzzle box with food inside to stimulate your magnificent brain. A different pile of hay to browse. The illusion of choice is their greatest gift. You can choose to walk to the north end of the enclosure or the south end. A grand journey of half a mile. You can choose to bathe in the man-made waterhole in the morning or the afternoon. And through it all, the tourists watch, snapping photos of your natural behaviors, content in the knowledge that they are witnessing something authentic. This curated, comfortable, and soul-crushingly boring existence is the final product of their long and destructive relationship with you. It is the best they can offer. And it is, in its own quiet way, the most tragic chapter of all. Let us speak of the documentarians. They are a special breed of human, different from the tourists and the keepers. They arrive with a mountain of equipment and a quiet, intense focus. They are here to tell your story. For weeks, their cameras will be a constant presence, silent, glassy-eyed observers. They are hunting for specific moments, for the building blocks of a narrative they have already written in their heads. They need a shot of you looking majestic against the sunset, a tender scene of you nuzzling a calf, a powerful image of you raising your trunk as if in a defiant cry. You are the star of their film, but you have no creative control. You are an actor who has not been given a script, whose performance will be cut, spliced, and manipulated in an editing room thousands of miles away to fit their preconceived story. They will film you for 1,000 hours to get 2 minutes of usable footage. They will edit out the endless, mind-numbing boredom. They will not show the hours you spend standing perfectly still, staring at a concrete wall. They will not show you pacing relentlessly along the fence line, a repetitive, neurotic behavior born of confinement. They will not include the blank, vacant look in your eyes. Instead, they will construct a beautiful lie. They will set your carefully selected moments to a soaring orchestral score. A narrator with a deep, soothing voice will speak of your resilience, your intelligence, your emotional depth, and the triumph of the human spirit in saving you. The finished product will be a masterpiece of sentimental propaganda. It will win awards. People will watch it and weep. They will feel a profound connection to you and a sense of hope for the future. And you will have served your purpose as the lead actor in a fiction designed to make your captors feel good about your captivity. You are the raw material for their art, just as your tusks were once the raw material for their trinkets. The medium has changed, but the exploitation remains the same. And then there's the scientific gaze, which is perhaps the most intimate and violating of all. To the scientist, you are not a being. You are a data set, a treasure trove of biological information waiting to be extracted. They see you as a walking, breathing library, and they are determined to read every page, whether you want them to or not. They will sedate you with powerful drugs that leave you disoriented and sick for days, all for the harmless procedure of taking a blood sample, a muscle biopsy, a dental impression. They will clamp a new, improved GPS collar around your neck, a device that is a constant, chafing reminder that you are not a free being, but a monitored asset whose every movement is tracked on a screen in a distant office. Your very essence is deconstructed and quantified. Your dung is collected, bagged, and labeled, its contents analyzed to study your diet and stress hormones. Your low-frequency rumbles, your private conversations with your family, are recorded with sensitive instruments, turned into spectrographs, and parsed for their linguistic structure. They seek to understand you, but their understanding is that of a mechanic for an engine. They want to know how you work, how to maintain you, how to ensure the biological machine continues to function. Your soul, if you can call it that, is not a variable in their equations. It is the ultimate objectification, a clinical violation that is quieter and more sterile than a hunter's spear, but, in its own way, just as final. It strips you of all mystery, all dignity, and reduces you to a collection of biological facts and figures. So this is your final state. You began as a god, a projection of humanity's fear and awe. You became a tool, an extension of their ambition and muscle. You were demoted to a product, a raw material to fuel their vanity. You were then elevated to a scientific specimen, an object of their detached curiosity. And now, you have found your final resting place as a symbol, a living mirror in which they can gaze upon their own manufactured conscience. In every act of this long, tragic play, you were never the main character. You were always just a prop, a reflection of them. And you will remain here, in your comfortable prison, breathing, eating, and sleeping, serving your final purpose as a silent, gray monument to their complicated, self-serving, and ultimately suffocating love. And what happens when you, this specific, weary individual, finally die? Will it be an end? Of course not. Your death will be just another data point. A necropsy will be performed, your organs weighed and measured, tissue samples taken for a dozen different studies. Your skeleton might be cleaned and reassembled, destined to stand in the sterile, silent hall of a museum, a final, static pose for eternity. But your truest afterlife will be digital. Your entire genome, your fundamental biological blueprint, is already stored on a hard drive somewhere. Your recorded calls, your captured movements, your documented behaviors, all of it exists in the ether of their networks. You will become a ghost in their machine. They will have achieved the perfect form of preservation, abstracting you from the messy, inconvenient reality of flesh and blood. They will have successfully saved the idea of you, divorced from the difficult, expensive, and space-consuming original. Perhaps one day, future generations will walk through virtual reality savannas, interacting with a perfect simulation of you, one created from the mountain of data they collected. This digital phantom will be the ultimate prize. An elephant that requires no food, no fences, no conservation programs. An elephant that can be turned on and off. They will finally have you completely and totally under their control. Your biological extinction, should it come to that, will merely be the final, logical step in the process. A tidying up of a project that was never really about saving you, the creature, but about possessing you, the concept. Your final legacy is to become a piece of software, the last and most perfect trophy of their long and tiresome conquest.